politics involved in the standards, which I don't want to do, but I just want to think further about how we make it effective oversight from elected members as well as professionals. Thank you.
If I can just come back at you on that, what details do you feel that are missing?
Yeah, so I guess it's the nature. So, for example, complaint 1, so paragraph 29 on page 22 goes through a number of complaints. So, source of complaint 1, nature of language used on social media around protected characteristics. Now, I'm sure all of us have been on social media a long time and seen a number of different types of language and emojis, etc., used towards both the public and towards elected members, and seen elected members use language and emojis that we consider inappropriate. But it's difficult for me to be able to say this has been dealt with correctly according to paragraph 6, I think that's 6I of the complaints procedure, when I don't know the context and I don't know what language was used. And so for me, there's a difference between someone who complains because someone has said something that may be unkind or sarcastic, compared to someone who's said something racist or misogynistic, where I'd want to consider it further. So I think there's the detail, not necessarily who. I think that's the sort of thing. So nature of, or number 4, for example, nature of complaint, planning, difference in view. Again, this could just be a matter of, is this a legitimate planning consideration? And then in my view, of course, that's right. We move on, because you're only allowed to consider legitimate planning considerations. But with the text as it is, I don't know what was said. And so it's difficult for me to come to a view, and other than what we're all doing, which is just relying on the officer and the independent member, which again, I'm not doubting their ability or their integrity or the honesty. My experience of council officers and people support the council is impeccable. But as someone who's signing off a report without the detail, just as a personal level, I find that more difficult.
Catherine, do you want to come back?
Yeah, just a couple of observations. Sorry, is this mic? Yeah, the mic is on. A couple of observations. The Local Government and the Housing Act, and also the delegations within which we work, our constitution, does, as an executive function, delegate that function around standards committee work to me. So I suppose the responsibility of that oversight is mine, shared with, I suppose, members, which is partly why we're here this morning. I think it's also worth saying as well, in terms of the actual dealing with complaints, I suppose there's an escalation of seriousness of complaints. Members within Leeds, I'm very pleased to say, are extremely well behaved, so we don't usually get beyond stage 1. Very occasionally, I think we've needed to go to stage 2 and to consult with the chair of the Standards and Conduct Committee. And if we ever had a stage 3, which we haven't in many years, then obviously the full Standards and Conduct Committee would be involved in that process. So I think it's a proportionate process, designed to ensure that the most serious complaints do have member oversight, whilst at the same time not getting members involved in, as you rightly say, the sort of political. We don't really sort of suffer from tit-tat complaints within Leeds, but if there was that context, then I think the way that the sort of stage 1 complaints are handled, and particularly with the oversight as well of the input of the independent persons, then I think that's sort of, that is how Leeds has decided that it wants to handle the complaints at the present time.
Councillor Scopes.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I guess so obviously the whole council delegates those powers, and there's a real question about. I guess there's two questions in my mind. So one is that the best way? And possibly it is, and that's fine. Let's carry on. I guess the second question is if we're here to read a paper and nod it without like detail, I guess, do we need to have this committee meeting?
It is a requirement that Standards Committee, and good practice as well, that Standards Committee does meet at least once a year. So yes, I would say that we do need the meeting. I think possibly the lack of work that comes to the committee is in some ways a testament to the standards of conduct which members of Leeds City Council abide by. So it's sort of a victim of your own success, if you like, really. I don't think I can add much more to that. I don't know whether Andy or Nicole or the chair wish to.
Thank you, Chair. I think possibly one of the things that we can take away, it is also quite a difficult balancing act sometimes by giving sufficient information to members and also not giving too much in the public domain. I think that's one of the tricky balancing acts that officers preparing the report and also putting the summaries into this report struggle with, to be honest. But we can look at that and perhaps reflect and put a bit more detail in. I think other than that, if we were to change the stage one process so there was some degree of member input, then that would not be something that this committee could determine today. It would be a matter for general purposes committee to consider and full council to agree. Thank you, Chair.
As a former group whip, then there are different levels of and the proportionality argument is one that I take on board, and also I do recognise that you have said the level of trust that our independent members have, and if anything was at all questionable, they would refer it to stage 2. So I am personally quite happy with that, Claire.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just to, I guess, reassure you of a case I've had that came up. I did have a really good conversation with the person who'd reviewed the complaint and had assessed it, and we talked about the extent to which it met the criteria for going further or for further action to be taken against the individual. So if it helps to reassure you, I think that scrutiny is part of my role and part of that process as well, that I can provide. So just making sure that it's been sort of pitched and considered at the right level, and we are giving kind of due external consideration to the cases.
And for further reassurance, I mean, it is that proportionality. There are rules around this, so I think looking at that means that it isn't just somebody's feeling or thought or their gut instinct. It is actually laid down. Councillor Gettings.
Under the old criteria, we used to have lots of cases to consider, a lot of tittle-tattle, a lot of political interference, in my opinion. So I think the new system is much better. I've great sympathy with what Andrew's points he's made, but I'm content with the explanation that's being given by the officer. So I fully support how we operate now.
And it doesn't mean we lack curiosity, because I also would like to know the details behind some of these, but totally recognise that in a political world, it often is better if they're dealt with by independent people, and then only the serious cases, the ones that really need further investigation, do come to us. Right, so the recommendation, we're asked to consider the matter set out in the monitoring officer's annual report, which I think we have done. I think Peter's taken on board your comments, and I think perhaps next report we will see a few more details in there where it doesn't reveal who the complainant is, who the person complained against is revealed, and so on. So we will get a bit more detail in the next report. Thank you. Right, can we move on to agenda item number 8?
Thank you, Chair. This item is in effect a paving report for you to agree your report to full council. Councillor Scopes probably isn't particularly impressed by the fact that there's no list of complaints in this report. But again, it's one of those things that the reason that we haven't done that is because these papers are also available on in the public realm on leeds.gov.uk, so they have been published. So this is one for members to consider and agree or amend.
If I can just comment on top of that and say a big thank you to the team that do member training, because we do actually receive a very comprehensive set of training around standards, and members do have DBS checks, and there's all sorts of safeguards that go around being a councillor and making sure that we actually do the right and fair thing for the residents of Leeds. So a big thank you from me to the team for doing that. So open for comments. Right, we'll move to the recommendations. Recommendations. A, consider and approve the draft annual report attached as Appendix 1. So we've got 5 members, I understand, who can vote here. So can we accept that?
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you very much. And B, support the chair in presenting the annual report to full council. So I shall be doing that. Obviously there was a chair for many years, Liz Nash, who is no longer a councillor, so couldn't be in this seat. So I do promise you a slightly shorter report at council next time. Right. So I don't know which council meeting that will be at, but that'll come up. It'll be the next one. That's great. So we'll get that done. Right. Any other business? Right, date and time of the next meeting. I think we still don't have a. Yes, it is a while away, unless some of our colleagues behave totally out of character, and which I hope they don't. I think people actually do really well and they do want to do the right thing. So thank you all members for that, because I really don't want to be here looking at a case at stage 2 or stage 3. Right, so thank you very much. That concludes today's meeting. Thank you so much for coming into Civic Hall today for that. And I now declare the meeting closed. Thank you.